So what if you could know what technologies will be in 5 or 10 years? I subscribe to a lot of blogs and a lot of sites and come across a lot of information in trying to prepare for these meetings and being able to communicate some relevant, timely information. Well, this was as of last week. So I think this is about as timely and as relevant as I'm going to get. Now, we don't have a crystal ball, and I don't have all the answers, thank goodness, but there are a lot of people out there that say they do. And I'd like to just share with you some of what some people are looking at as what's coming up. Space travel and habitation. Commercialized space travel will see a lot of innovation, says Jeffrey Baumgartner, founder of the JPB Innovation Consultancy. I don't know what that is either. Much of it will be incremental in nature, but the result, low cost, easy travel to space and potential bases on the moon, and in longer term, Mars, will involve substantial innovation. Some firms to watch, says Mr. Baumgartner, are Space Exploration Technologies Corp., known as SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, and Bigelow Aerospace. So if you're playing stock markets, those are some up-and-coming issues. Human habitation in space so far has taken place in rigid vehicles like the International Space Station. Bigelow, based in North Las Vegas, Nevada, is developing inflatable modules that should be easier and cheaper to launch. Bigelow already is orbiting 2 unmanned, expandable prototypes and says it's planning assembly of 4 new spacecraft by 2015. The key here is that aeronautics is leaving government control and being taken over by industry, where cost-cutting and profitability, rather than contractors milking the state for as much as they can get, will lead to a lot of innovation, affordability, and efficiency. To that end, the next stage is heavy lift launching. A critical obstacle to any sort of space-based future is getting some rather sizable objects beyond the reach of Earth's gravity. But Langdon Morris, a partner with the Innovation Labs consulting firm, notes that while state-invested companies in the US, Russia, and Europe have developed heavy lift launch capabilities, one private company is moving forward to surpass them all in terms of payload capacity, an innovation that could slash launch prices and make large payloads commercially viable. And that, again, is SpaceX. It says it hopes for a 2013 launch of its Falcon 9 Heavy rocket, which is designed to carry payloads of up to 70,000 pounds into low Earth orbit, about 1/3 more than the Space Shuttle, which is the largest capacity launch vehicle now in operation. One of the spin-offs from space technologies is space-based solar power. And once the heavy lift launch is solved, space solar power will be close behind. Space solar power could transform the Earth's economy. The idea is for satellites in geostationary orbit to collect the sun's energy and convert it to radio waves for transmission to surface stations, where it will be converted into electricity for local power grids. One company doing this is a company called SolarN. They're out in California, which last year reached an agreement to sell 200 megawatts of electricity a year to California's largest utility, Pacific Gas and Electric, for 15 years, starting in 2016. SolarN says it plans to test key systems and deployments in space in 2014 and launch its space solar power plant into geostationary orbit in 2016. There is a competitor, a Swiss-based company named Space Energy Group, says it hopes to launch a test satellite within 3 years, assuming it gets its funding in place. Medical devices. With advances in nanoscale engineering, medicine is about to redefine minimally invasive, says Francis Collins, former leader of the Human Genome Project and current director of the National Institute of Health. Dr. Collins notes that Johns Hopkins University researcher David Garcias and his colleagues are developing a new class of nanoscale tools for surgery and drug delivery. I happen to have seen such a device about 2 weeks ago for colonoscopy, and if anyone has gone through that process, you'll understand why we're moving around a little bit. It was small enough to fit on the head of a ballpoint pen and will give you a 360 panoramic view on something about a millimeter tall. And it's ingested in an entirely different manner than traditional, and it was unbelievably effective and is now being tested at the NYU Medical Center in Brooklyn, their incubator technology place. New treatments for blindness. In the University of California and at Berkeley, they're working on a novel therapy for blindness. The technique involves introducing light-sensing molecules or photo switches into retinas that have lost photoreceptor cells. The photo switches can be used to control the activity of proteins in the eye that are essential to transmitting information from outside world to the brain in normal vision. I could go into the whole thing, but the downstream retinal neurons that receive and process information from these cells are preserved for years after the onset of blindness, giving hope that visual sensitivity might be restored by allowing the artificial input of information to these cells. So the cells are being used as storage of information that can be communicated. Fuel technologies. 2 firms could provide significant breakthroughs in the next few years in the search for cleaner fuel technology, says Andrew Shapiro, founder and president of Green Order, a unit of consulting firm, LRN, that promotes corporate environmental sustainability. In the race towards off-the-grid personalized power stations, Sun Catalytics of Cambridge, Mass. is challenging the dominant notion of batteries as a means of electrical energy storage. Companies developing a system that will use power from solar panels to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, then store both in tanks for use in generating power when the sun goes down. Meanwhile, Amyris, A-M-Y-R-I-S, of Emeryville, California, is developing genetic engineering technologies that change the way microbes process sugar, turning them into biorefineries that could provide alternative to products derived from petroleum. It's pretty neat technologies. Adaptive learning. Education, like most other services, could become more tailored to individual needs. That's difficult in the low-tech, labor-intensive context of the traditional classroom, but adaptive learning could change everything, says Michael Horn, co-founder and executive director of the InnoSight Institute, which is a nonprofit think tank. The technology is an amalgam of computer science, education, and cognitive science, uses both desktop and web-based programs that in some ways mimic the interactivity of human teachers. Startup companies like Newton, K-N-E-W-T-O-N, and Grockit, G-R-O-C-K-I-T, as well as stalwarts like Kaplan, are starting to push in this area, and there are promised breakthroughs in the next 5 years. So at the end of the day, is your technology going to be next? We have some very exciting technologies that we've been presenting you over the last few weeks and months. There's more to come, and we're looking forward to the innovations right here in our neck of the woods and with our compatriots all over the world. So thank you for listening to this,